The Arizona sun was dipping low into the desert horizon, casting long golden shadows over the empty highway. Officer Miguel leaned forward in his patrol car, squinting at a vehicle approaching in the distance. It was an old, rust-covered pickup truck, rattling like it had barely survived the last century. The rear window was cracked, one of the taillights flickered weakly, and every time it hit a bump, the exhaust let out a cough like it was on its last breath. Miguel tapped the steering wheel and glanced at his partner, Officer Jensen, a rookie still getting used to the rhythm of night patrols. "You see that?" Miguel asked, motioning with his chin. Jensen looked up from his notes. "Yeah, just some old junker. Probably a farmer heading home." Miguel shook his head. "Not at this hour, and not out here." He reached over, flicked on the lights, and the red and blue glow painted the truck's dull frame as it obediently pulled over. The driver rolled down the window slowly, revealing a man in his late 70s with silver-white hair, sharp cheekbones, and a calm but weathered expression. His clothes were worn but clean. A pair of old military dog tags hung around his neck, slightly tucked under his shirt. Without saying a word, he handed over his license and registration, except the registration was missing. Miguel examined the license. "Thomas Gray, age 76. No current address listed," he read aloud. "Mr. Gray, where exactly are you headed tonight?" The old man's voice was steady, with a faint, gravelly tone that suggested both time and experience. "Just driving west, going to see an old friend before the road runs out." Miguel raised an eyebrow. "Can I ask who this friend is?" Thomas gave a faint smile. "A man I haven't seen in decades. I reckon he'll know why I'm coming." It was a strange answer, and it didn't sit quite right. Jensen stepped to the back of the truck and peeked inside. There were several wooden crates filled with mechanical parts, tools, and wires. Nothing illegal, but unusual. Folded carefully on the passenger seat was an American flag, pristine despite the dust. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle, sir?" Miguel asked cautiously. Thomas didn't argue. He opened the creaking door and slowly stepped out, revealing a slight limp in his right leg. "You boys need to do a search?" he asked gently. "Go ahead. I've got nothing to hide. Just be careful with what's in the glove box. It's all I've got left." Miguel called in a background check. No active warrants, no known criminal activity. But the truck came back flagged, unregistered, and without a valid plate. That gave them cause to bring him in. "Sir, unfortunately, your vehicle's registration is expired and untraceable. We're going to need to bring you in for further questioning," Miguel said. Thomas didn't resist. He gave a single nod and cast one last glance at the truck, his expression unreadable. "All right, but please, don't leave her out in the heat too long. She's carried more than most people ever will." Back at the station, Thomas sat quietly in the holding area. He didn't complain, didn't ask questions, didn't even seem surprised. He hummed softly, a tune neither officer could quite place, but that seemed familiar in a haunting way, like a melody from a distant war movie. When offered water or food, he politely declined. "Just one phone call," he said calmly. Miguel handed him the phone, expecting him to fumble or pull out a scrap of paper, but Thomas dialed the number from memory. He spoke briefly. "Tell him I kept my word. He's safe. But I won't be coming back. That's all." He ended the call without waiting for a reply. Jensen, watching from the desk, whispered to Miguel, "This is getting strange. He's too calm, too composed." Miguel nodded. "And too mysterious. But something tells me we're not dealing with a criminal." The minutes passed in silence until dispatch crackled over the radio. "Heads up. We've got a black SUV with military plates pulling into the lot. Driver isn't giving a name. Says his visit is classified." Miguel and Jensen exchanged a sharp glance. "You expecting anyone?" Miguel asked. "Not unless the president's in town," Jensen replied. The doors to the station opened moments later, and a man in full military uniform stepped inside. Tall, broad, and radiating authority, he wore 4 stars on his shoulder and walked like someone who had ordered missions from war rooms. He looked directly at Miguel. "Where's Thomas Gray?" he demanded. Miguel stood slowly. "Sir, we stopped him earlier tonight. There was an issue with his truck." "Do you have any idea who you reholding?" The general interrupted, voice like thunder. "That man is Major Thomas Gray, Medal of Honor recipient, master engineer. The reason half your military satellites haven't fallen out of the sky." Miguel's mouth went dry. Jensen stepped forward, stunned. "We didn't know. He never said—" "Because men like him never do," the general snapped. "Release him, immediately." Miguel rushed down the hallway, keys in hand, heart pounding as he approached the holding cell. Thomas Gray sat quietly on the bench, as if he were waiting for a bus, not surrounded by cement walls and locked doors. When he saw the general behind Miguel, Thomas stood up slowly, brushing off his knees. The 2 men exchanged a look. No salute, no handshakes. Just the kind of silent respect born from a battlefield no one else had seen. "I figured you'd come," Thomas said. The general nodded. "You shouldn't have come alone, Tom." "I didn't want this to become a thing," Thomas replied. "You know why I kept it quiet?" Miguel unlocked the cell. "Sir, we're so sorry. We didn't realize—" Thomas held up a hand. "You were doing your job. Don't carry guilt for following orders. I've seen worse mistakes made with better intentions." As they walked back through the precinct, silence followed them like a shadow. Every officer on duty stood aside. No one dared speak. The general opened the door to the black SUV and gestured for Thomas to enter, but the older man paused and turned toward Miguel and Jensen. "Let me leave you boys with something," he said. "You see, long ago I helped develop a security system to protect our satellites, high-level defense stuff. Only a few people even knew it existed. But one day a young kid, my best friend's son, hacked into it just for fun. He didn't understand the danger. He nearly triggered something that could have shut down global communications." He paused. "The military wanted to arrest him, ruin his future. But I took responsibility. I retired early, kept an eye on him, made sure he stayed on the right path. He never knew what I did to protect him. He still doesn't." Jensen frowned. "Why go through all that for someone else's kid?" Thomas gave a soft, tired smile. "Because he deserved a second chance. We all do. Especially when someone believes in us enough to fight for it." The general cleared his throat. "Tom, we really need to go." Thomas nodded but reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded photo. He handed it to Miguel. "You asked what was in the glove box. That's what I kept." Miguel opened it. It was an old picture of a younger Thomas standing beside a military grave, saluting with his hat in hand. On the back, written in fading ink, were the words, "For the father who served in silence, so others could speak freely." Miguel stood frozen, staring at the image as the SUV pulled away into the quiet night. Later that evening, back at the checkpoint, Miguel and Jensen sat in the patrol car, staring into the desert's darkness. The road looked the same, but something had shifted. "Think we'll ever see him again?" Jensen asked quietly. Miguel shook his head. "Men like that don't stick around. They show up when they're needed. Then they disappear before you can thank them." Jensen looked down at his lap. "I wish I had thanked him." Miguel glanced at the photo again, then tucked it safely into his wallet. "He doesn't need applause. He needs understanding. That's how you honor a man like him." The next morning, an official memo arrived at the precinct. It was short, direct, and carried the full weight of a military seal. It read, "Effective immediately, all officers will receive enhanced veteran identification training. Remember, not every hero wears a uniform anymore. Some drive old trucks, some stay silent, some carry the weight of the world so others never have to." It was signed, General Raymond Carter.